got you here again this evening, and um, kind of having a restful night, um, and doing a lot of thinking today and listening to videos, as it is one of my free days, um, on a lot of the topic again of narcissist abuse. As I'm gathering all this information as the day went on, I almost don't know where to begin. Although I do like to kind of take all the things that I've gathered and just kind of put it into sometimes journaling my own story throughout my own recovery as I go, along with narcissistic abuse, be it with dysfunctional family stuff to dysfunctional relationship stuff and addiction. Um, I guess I'm just going to stop and reflect tonight, with my own struggles with addiction and back again on narcissism. I think that it's kind of important that the way that I've been doing it and have been kind of patterning it first has been my recovery with healing the inner self, healing the inner conflict, as yet again being cast out by a family and another dead-end relationship, where at first, when you're first starting in your recovery, you're not sure what's going on. You don't know why all of a sudden this person has dropped their mask, or even that group of people or whatever, going along with this idea, this false idea of you, that doesn't make any sense. Maybe the devaluing stage has begun in that relationship, where you're really starting to learn and understand about narcissists and what they're like, their behavior, and the different things that they put you through, which can be very devastating. It can turn into a very lonely journey at first when all of a sudden you find yourself alone, and maybe you've gotten away from that person, or have finally created some boundaries where you're by yourself more, and nowadays more of letting that old relationship go with a past male in my life, and study further, create boundaries. I can really kind of look back and see where I did start seeing things go wrong. I'm going to share a story again, where I was younger, in my later 20s, like 25, how, I was very close with my family. It was very enmeshed, and I thought they were great. They were very like superheroes and saints, and I had much love for both my codependent mother, and my covert narcissistic father. But I do remember wondering what was going on when I became ill. I got IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, and I remember not being able to, it really put me down, function at the adrenaline kicked in level that I was at for so many years. Plus thyroid things started happening then, I think, which often can occur as we are victims, and we are pumping with adrenaline, be it as we are more in the state of fight or flight, starting from very young ages, and we're jumping and making these people happy and pleasing these people and doing whatever they want, really, and not paying attention to ourselves. And I remember wondering at the time when I was no longer able to cater to their every need, not knowing then that that's what I was doing, but as I lived alone, noticed that all of a sudden they weren't talking to me as much as they usually did, if at all. They weren't calling me as much because I could not meet their demands anymore as much as I did. It was that's when kind of my awakening started, as to wondering what was wrong, although I couldn't put my finger on it back then, and a large part of it can be denial as well, that these people that you loved so much could break your heart like that and turn around and just ignore, and a lot of neglect happened back then, thinking that these people would be more concerned for me and help me out and help be by my side and care for me more at the time, when I found that I began living my life in much more of a silence, and a very lonely silence. So, at first, when you start wondering what the other person's problem is, and why that could be happening, it wasn't until much later, gosh, I'm 43 now, after a few more narcissistic relationships, where there was physical abuse, and of course emotional abuse, and over abuse as well, which is the opposite of covert, where a person is just downright calling you names, or pushing you around, where that not good enough gets pounded down in your brain, where humiliation and just, cruelty with that time, where a narcissist can really kick you down even worse when you're weak and vulnerable. The reason why is because they can actually, you are like a mirror back to them of all their own weaknesses and vulnerabilities, and they really can't stand that. So, they can really avoid you when things go wrong in your life, when things get down for you, at your worst moments. They can pull away and they can run because you can no longer provide them the sources that they once had from you when you were catering to their every emotional need, or even physical needs. that really threw me for a hoop, and I remember then becoming very angry at them, or the men in and out of my life. Also, where my children were concerned, as a single mother, when I began to work at a different place at night, a night job, and my mother would babysit, and oftentimes being ill, yet besides working with an illness and being so extremely exhausted after I got home, I found that that my mother was keeping them overnight more and more, and actually feeling a psychologically twisting in my mind, uh, the feelings deep inside of me, that probably concurred at a much younger age, that we were conditioned that that's my dog, that maybe I was not capable enough of giving my children the right care, which can be really pounded on us, even really in subtle ways. And that's really tragic when that happens, and it can feel like your heart is torn out of your chest when the grandparents, or maybe even an ex, can take advantage of a weaker person like this in their most vulnerable times, and just change it all up as to we are not capable of being a good enough parent or a good enough daughter or son or whatever. I mean, it can even happen in the workplace. It can come out of the blue when you are dealing with more superior type individuals, where they think and really have an ego in their minds that everybody else is so much more inferior than them, and they must prove it all the time, even when they have to lie. And they can make it seem so real that you can even start believing it after a while. It's just so manipulative and disgusting. As an empath, when you see things that they're doing, can really anger a person, and the reaction that we do have at first is one where we're just blown away. It can make us feel and act crazy. Our anger, they do not justify our anger, or any emotions that we have, which they never did to begin with pay attention to, because they were too busy focusing on themselves, you know. So this is really sad for me, because I did go through this experience, and of course, a lot of times can lead to where we have that need to control the situation, or to turn that situation around, but their pull is so strong. We often can feel helpless and hopeless and like a victim, and fall into that more victim mentality where the pain is so harsh on us, so unbearably harsh, and we don't know or never have learned how to cope the right way, or how to react to these situations with these people, where they can turn it all around on us, and even call the mental health clinic in some cases, and tell them that you're crazy. Maybe they've gotten in your diary you down so much in these ways where we just want to go out and cope by using or getting away from it, but not in healthy ways. That so often can occur in dysfunctional families. Um, and they can sabotage and they can smear campaign to everybody else or triangulate, which they're so good at, by talking to other people and making other people believe these false things about you. When you do start having reactions to the cruelty. Um, so, I know for me, when that all began, I ran, and about that time, this male friend that I had, or acquaintance that I knew, that was around at the time, and I got involved, and methamphetamine became the drug of choice, that I was led away by this male individual who taught me how to use this, and all it just kind of numbed the pain and put me into a different world where that unbearable pain to what I was waking up to and finding, where my parents weren't who I thought they were, and many relationships then after and before, but all became a pattern that I finally started identifying about 4 years ago. And I thank God today that, and I even told one of my children the other day that I was grateful to learn from these individuals what I needed to learn in order to begin to fix myself and stabilize myself. After so many years of feeling like a failure that they accuse you of being, and projecting all their falseness onto you, and even becoming, during this whole process, even more of getting all these narcissistic traits myself and beginning not to care, to harden our hearts like we often want to, because the pain is so unbearable, to be hurt less by the people that we are, to meet in the future. We can really close ourselves off and get in that denial so badly, when, especially in covert, when they're saying that everything's okay, everything's great, there's nothing wrong at all, and we don't know what's wrong with you. Obviously, it's your problem, and there's something wrong with you. When you're pointed in the finger like that so many times, day after day, fighting with these people just becomes like talking with a brick wall. They don't seem to get it. They don't seem to understand. And no matter how many times I remember trying to pound it into their heads, that what they were doing wrong never really helped in the end, except for them provoking further reactions from me, and even sending me to jail on one occasion when I was attacked, starting with just a basic, simple argument about getting something for somebody when I had just worked all night, and reminding me of my place, and that, to follow their rules yet again and their demands. So, how many times do we walk in and out of these relationships with these people, where when they say they're sorry and they're doing all these good things for us again, and how much they love us and how wonderful they are again, for a while, where we have been, really addicted to the need for that love and approval and acceptance from people that were not healthy enough to give it to us, when that's all that we ever wanted, and we go through that grieving process at first, um, but as we begin to understand and let go, learning about different ways to react to these people can really be a life changer, as you are maybe planning to get out of these situations, and maybe set you and your children somewhere else, um, or housing or whatever somewhere else, or another job, um, making sure that you have an escape plan as you leave these relationships, which is really important, because they're damaging, and it doesn't just stop there. I mean, these people will go to no ends to really hurt another person in any way that they can. It's a part of narcissistic personality disorder. And, during this time, like I was saying in the beginning, we learn so many different ways to go on, um, you know, um, and get back up and stand again, um, while learning to react in a different way, where we do not give them an emotional reaction, but we can try to stay cool. And when we do have to deal with them, instead of them, provoking another argument out of you by simply smiling and just, saying something like, is that, are you having a bad day? How are you really feeling? And just keep a kind of a blasé about it instead. I know it can be very hard in the beginning because we have so much CPTSD, but as we work with mindfulness, um, and practicing peace instead, it can become easier. And this video is already dragged to 20 minutes already. How this technique that I was learning more about today can be very useful um, when these people come at us with attacks, and it's good to know these certain techniques that I will like to be sharing on here, because your safety is very important, and that above all will rule out the situation if you let it. So, a little sleepy here tonight, but I thought I'd come on and give a little video, and thanks for watching tonight, and